Good morning and welcome to the Core Connection. I'm Mira Rubin here with you on Enlightened World Network. And today's topic is time. So we have such an interesting relationship to time. That's what we're going to explore today. But before we get started, let's just take a minute or two to settle in. Let's take a deep breath in through your nose. Hold it and imagine clean, crisp oxygen coursing into your lungs and into your bloodstream, nourishing all your cells and your organs. And as you exhale, exhale any tension, any stress. And let's take another deep breath in through your nose. Hold it, and this time imagine sparkling white light beaming through every molecule in your being and beyond, connecting you with the world around you. And now let's just gently take our palms and press them softly together and softly rub your fingers against your palms. Feel the tickling in your fingers and in your palms and how delicious that is, and allow yourselves to come present right here, right now. And good morning, Sally De La Rosa. So glad you're here with us. And welcome to everybody else who's here this morning. Great to see you. So let's talk about time. Uh, I don't know about you. I have a very interesting relationship to time. I'm on time. I'm very much on time. However, when people ask me when something happened, in terms of years or in my life, I have no sense of time at all. Good morning, Dido. Welcome. We're talking about time this morning and our relationship to it and how our relationship to it shapes our experience of it. So I actually have a friend who knows my timeline better than I do. She knows when events happened in my life better than I do because I really have no long-term perspective on time at all. And I guess we can't really talk about long-term perspective on time without talking about age, because I know that we have different experiences of age, and I don't have any relationship to my age at all. Like when I look at the numbers, that it just boggles me. I don't really relate to that. I'm wondering about you. What's your relationship to your age? I know that some people identify with being old or being young, and I have people that are younger than me telling me how old they are, and I just I just shake my head because I don't relate. I don't feel old. I don't feel young. I kind of feel like I exist outside of time in a way. My body doesn't look that way to me, or to others, but I I really don't experience age per se. And it's interesting to me to have such a disconnected relationship to the passage of time, like in terms of months or years, and yet to be on time. And like when there's an appointment, I'm there on time. When I need to go somewhere, I'm there on time. And I don't particularly stress about time. A lot of us do. We feel, oh, time's running out. I only have so much more time left, or else we cherished our time together. We uh, we equate time with money, right? Time is money. We all have heard that. And in my family, my dad was very much about time is money, because anything I spent time on, he'd say, "Well, are you getting paid?" And that was just really crazy. To be looking at my time and equating it, what time I was spending, spend time, right? The time I was spending on things I enjoyed, and he would be asking me if I was getting paid. It was very interesting. Sally says, I don't identify with my age. I'm 57 and feel younger. Good, but I refuse to tie myself to a number. You and me both, Sally. You and me both. I'm finding that as I get older, I feel more expressed, more free, more at peace. And in so many ways, I feel younger because of releasing a lot of the stresses that had so been tied to time for me previously, and tied to age and accomplishment. Lots of us beat ourselves up because we wanted to be somewhere else in our lives by this age or by this time, or it's taking so much time to make change. Sally says, yes, exactly. It's taking so much time to make change or to do something. It always takes longer than you think it will. I mean, these are all kinds of stories that we have about time that I'm sure we all relate to. And the good times also, that I personally, I've had people, I know a lot of people that say, oh, I wish I were 20 again. And I can tell you, I wouldn't trade back for one single day in my life. There's no way I would go back in time to another time in my life. I'm wondering if you have times in your life that you feel you would want to go back to, and also what can you create now? What can you create going forward in this moment? I think this whole conversation about time is interesting because it is all about past and future, right? And not about presence, not about being here in this moment. And I'm wondering if you have a friendly relationship with time or a fraught relationship with time. Are you always struggling against the clock? Hello, Maria. Welcome, welcome, welcome. So glad you're here. And welcome to everybody else who's joining us in this conversation about time. And time is running out, or, we get this sense of urgency through time is running out. And there are things that are time dependent that we get to look at. The question is, let's see, Sally says, never would I go through my 20s again. I am with you, Sally. I was so angry and wishy-washy, full of chaotic energy. Sally, I can say the same thing. I was angry and lost and depressed and through many years of my life. And I really would not revisit any of it. And I'm grateful to have had all those experiences because they shape who I am now. And they're the passages that I had to go through to get to this place. But I seriously would not trade a minute back. And it's interesting that you and I are in the same camp about that, Sally. Maybe some of you other folks who are listening and watching, maybe you want to weigh in on that. What is it for you? What is time for you? This is the best time of our lives. What about that? Or the worst times of our lives? And for me, I am really grateful to say that this is one of the best times of my life. And and that life is only getting better. And I know that that's not everyone's experience. However, I believe that a lot of it is a function of our thinking and our beliefs and the contexts that we create for ourselves and the experiences that we have. And I think that over time, there's another one, over time, we hopefully, we become less reactive. We become more acclimated, more easygoing because we know we've survived tough times. Here we go with times again. And Maria says, laugh out loud, time opens doors to be on with all of you. Oh, that's wonderful. That's wonderful, Maria. Thank you. I'm delighted that you're here with us. Um, And Sally says, yes, but I absolutely love where I am today. That's awesome, Sally. That's what we can all hope for, right? That we, over time, we evolve and uh, emerge into a richer expression, a more authentic expression of ourselves. And time will tell. I love that one too. Time will tell. Like time holds the secrets. And as time unfolds, I love all these words that we use for the passage of time. And actually, that's a really cool one, because when we think of the passage of time, we think of time passing. But what about a passage, like a tunnel or a road, like a passage, the passage of time, and that time provides that place of passage, which is fascinating to me. Uh, Also, how about the relativity of time? That's really what we're talking about with age, or you've had experiences, I'm sure, where time flew by or time was at a crawl. And so these are relative experiences, right? What is it that makes time fly? When we're really engaged with something, we suspend our our inner timer, maybe, and we can find that hours pass by in the blink of an eye, and that is a state we call flow. Dawn, good morning. I'm so glad to have you here. Dawn says, I'm having the time of my life. Much love to all. That's beautiful. Yes, the time of my life. Isn't that's a really neat one to look at too, when we say the time of my life. If we think of it, all time exists within the context of our lives, right? Our experience of time, our concept of time, our notion of time all exists in the context of our own lives. So having the time of our lives is really an interesting thing, to be having time. How about that? Having time, losing time, gaining time. Uh, I just find this whole thing so fascinating. And back to the relativity of it, when we're in flow, we don't even experience time. It's like space out of time. And sometimes, there's another one, sometimes we experience a timelessness when we're meditating. And that is a place of presence beyond time. And what is that like? What happens to our bodies and our beings as we experience these times out of time, where it's almost a suspension of the passage of time? And those are moments that I particularly cherish. And I find, I don't know if you have a similar experience. I'm curious about this. Share with me, or share with all of us, uh, where some moments can go so slowly and it feels like each day lasts forever. And then you look back and the weeks and the months have just flown by. I remember a day when I was in school. I was in probably, I guess I was in junior high school, high school. And it was one of the longest days of my life. I don't remember why, but every minute was 3 days at least. And the way that it took so long for that day to go by, and yet a year can go by in a blink. How is that? How is it that we can look back and say, oh my gosh, it's been 5 years? I actually can look back and say, oh my gosh, it's been more than 30 years. more than 40 years. It's I can keep going, but I won't. Anyway, it's wild, wild how we punch the clock for punching in and out of the time clock for work, or we set the timer. So much of our lives are oriented around time, and our relationship to it is a really important thing. If we think about time as a commodity, you know, we have a limited amount of time here on the planet in a certain way, you know, in an actual way, in our physicality. We have X number of years, and we get to use those years in any number of ways, respecting that time or squandering that time, or really making good use of that time, etc., etc. Dido says, there's that expression that the days are long, but the years fly by. I have never heard that expression, but I find that so completely true in my experience. And I lose count of the days and the weeks, and it's I don't know if that helps to keep me young, because I don't feel the passage of time. I know that I remember when I was, well, I don't know, maybe I was in my late 30s. I was dating somebody who was 45, and he was telling me how old he was. And I just feel sadness for someone who feels at 45 that they're old. I kind of feel sadness for anybody who feels that they're old, because there's so much available to us in life at any age, no matter how old we are. There's so much living available to us. And that makes me think, maybe you guys can help me with this quote, because I know I'm only going to be able to give you the essence of it. I don't have the quote, but I think it might have been Irma Bombeck. I'm not sure, but essentially wanting to burn the candle at both ends, live life wildly, and sort of skid over the finish line kind of idea, where we live life to the fullest, and uh, just drink from the cup of life as fully as possible throughout every minute of our lives. And then there's the other point of view, that I indulge in sometimes, a lot of times, is that this is a brief experience of being a spirit manifest in physical form, and I am a timeless being. And so the pressure of time is not necessarily something that I need to impose upon myself, because I am timeless, and I can really cherish the time that I have at the same time. And Sally says he was giving up before his time. Yes, that's another one, giving up before his time. So when your time has come, right? It wasn't his time. It wasn't her time. It's all very, very interesting how much of our conversation is related to time. I had a good time. Let the good times roll. I had a bad time. I'm having a rough time. I'm having the time of my life, as I think it was, yes, it was Dawn who said. So what kinds of negotiations have you made for yourself with time? Because I don't particularly believe that there is such a thing as wasting time, because we're here for it. Okay, this gets into some interesting thinking, because if we're valuing our lives based on our external accomplishments, then we will potentially be looking at how we're wasting time, how we should have been at a different place by this time, how uh, there's so much better use of our time, et cetera, right? If we're valuing ourselves based on our external achievements and accomplishments, if we presence ourselves to the experience of living, that can't possibly be wasted time, right? If we are really present to life itself, even if we're sitting on a rock in the middle of a stream, or maybe especially, we can't be wasting time, right? If we're doing something we enjoy, even if we're experiencing uh, sorrow or grief or pain, it's all part of the experience of living. And in the context of that, where every moment is part of living, then it can't be wasted, can it? So play with me here. What are your thoughts on this? Because I think that we can often fall into beating ourselves up. I should have gotten more stuff done. I just didn't have enough time. I didn't have enough time, or it took too much time to do this or that. And I wonder how much of our relationship with time is because we are externalizing our values. And the story about, or the conversation that this alludes to, is something that I've spoken about a bunch before, in terms of externalizing our value as living creatures on this planet. It doesn't mean that things shouldn't get done in the world. What I'm talking about really is, instead of doing things for doing sake, for the thing's sake, for the objective, like running the marathon to win the marathon, versus running the marathon for the process of running the marathon, or from the inspiration that drives you to run that marathon. Coming from inspiration rather than from the external objective. When we are bound to external objectives, when we're striving in living for external objectives, what often happens is that we're striving for that objective, and we're enduring or dissociating ourselves in the process of getting to that objective. And that's not really, I mean, it's living life, but it's not living life. And so that's what I'm talking about when I'm talking about externalizing our worth. When we are able to connect with actual experience of living, then we don't need to measure our worth from externalities. We can be present to our self-worth just by being present. So Sally says, I remember saying a lot when I was younger, by the time I'm 30 or 40, 50, I was going to be somebody. Oh, Sally, thank you so much for that. Oh my gosh, right? We spend our lives, when I'm 17, when I'm 20, when I'm 16, I'll be able to drive. That's what it was for me. When I'm 21, I'll be able to, when I'm 18, I'll be able to vote. When I'm 21, I'll be able to drink or whatever, and on and on and on. It is crazy. And Sally says, I am somebody as I always was. I am me, and that's enough. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Thank you for that. And that ties in with our notion of time. It's like by the time I'm 40, I'm going to be financially free. By the time I'm such and such, I'm going to have or be or do whatever. And that is a way that we, through these expectations, we create judgment, disappointment, and accomplishment. But if we are running through life checking off all the things on our bucket list without experiencing them, without enabling ourselves to be really present to those things, then it's empty. And frankly, for me, in terms of life, I would rather be sitting on that rock in a stream for the rest of my life than running around to check off things on my bucket list without being present to them. And I am really talking about a shifting of paradigm from this external notion of life to a more internal connection with living itself, because I believe in my heart that this connection with living itself is what is going to enable us to make the changes in the world that need to be made, to make the connections with one another that need to be nourished and nurtured. And Dido says, perhaps there is ego time, not enough time, scarcity around time, good or bad times, etc., and divine timing, which is mysterious, does not follow our rules, and when nothing is wasted or wrong from a more expansive perspective. Dido, you, as always, are so brilliant and making the perfect distinctions, because I'm sure that so many of us have experienced this crazy divine timing where something happens that leads to something else, that leads to something else 10 years later, and you can see it's like dominoes just flipping each other over and over and over to make this perfect evolution of circumstance. And that's the divine timing that I think you're speaking of, Dido. It's kind of non-linear and out beyond our sense of logic or understanding. And that's the time that we are able to access sometimes in our meditations or in moments of shifted awareness. And so Maria says we should live in now. Well, that's the ultimate thing, right? To be present in this present moment. And when we are in the present moment, time kind of disappears. Time kind of just passes, but it's not a taskmaster, so many of us in ego time, thank you for that distinction, Dido. In ego time, we feel scarcity, or we feel like we're wasting time, or we feel like time is passing us by, etc. And when we're connected, we reside more in divine timing, and life unfolds in its perfection. And Maria says, we cannot change past or frame future, but we have now to activate. Maria, I love that. And what is the past? So this gives us an opportunity to really look at what is the past, because the past is a memory, right? And I just in terms of the past and changing the past, I've told this story before, but I had a memory. Now, I don't know where the memory came from. I don't have a physical memory of this event, but I have a memory that I had been told that I had drunk turpentine as a kid and had to be rushed to the hospital to have my stomach pumped. And I had that memory for years and years and years. And at one point, as an older adult, I actually asked my parents about them, and neither of them had any recollection of it at all. So I have no idea whether that was true or not. So, in terms of the past, the way that we remember the past changes our experience of the past, and it makes the past kind of unknowable in a way. So, one of the techniques that I use, well, NLP, neuro linguistic programming, does actually enable us to at least change our experience of the past. And I want to say too that we actually can frame the future, because we shape our experience by the way that we choose to integrate information, and also the attitudes and the perspectives that we take on things. So by shifting our beliefs and by creating a context, we do get to frame the future in a way. So that's another way that we actually do get to transcend time, which is really, really fascinating. So I in fact, there is an NLP process called timeline therapy, where you can go back through your timeline and shift your experience of all different kinds of events in your life. So amazing, amazing, interesting things about time, right? And really thinking about it, because it's not something that we generally think about, other than I don't have enough of it, or I'm wasting it, or um, things related to age or whatever. So I think that that's it for today, unless you guys have any other insights you'd like to add. I've really enjoyed this conversation. I hope you have too. I think that when we maybe allow ourselves to be in that divine timing, our relationship with time shifts. You know, I just thought of another thing to consider around this whole conversation. You know, when we connect with our internal timing, our internal clock, we often end up not having to set alarm clocks, because we always wake up at the same time. We have our inner timing that works for us. And I find that fascinating too. So it's kind of like there's something going on that is marking time beyond our conscious awareness, that that is tuned in to that, and is just one more aspect for us to think about. So thank you so much for playing this morning. I really appreciate it. I really enjoyed it. And I'm Mira Rubin. This is the Core Connection. And I am here weekday mornings, every weekday morning at 9 a.m. Eastern. And we broadcast live on Enlightened World Network's Facebook page. And it's just a delight to be with you. And Sally says, oh my gosh, her internal clock is set at 4 a.m. every day. Sorry about that, Sally. Unless maybe you go to work at 5. I don't know. But anyway, thank you. Really a delight to be with you. And I encourage you to check out the other wonderful programming on Enlightened World Network. And until next time, have a wonderful, wonderful day, a wonderful weekend. And enjoy your time. I've enjoyed our time together.